Oda has finally revealed the members from the strongest pirate crew in history, the Rocks Pirates. Over 38 years ago, Rocks, the strongest pirate, alongside his men, ruled the seas. These guys were so busted that almost all the members would be known as Yonkos or top-tier pirates of the New World after Rocks' death. In fact, the Pirate King Roger's own crew had to team up not just with the strongest marine Garp, but also the strongest soldier of Imu and Shanks' father, Garling, to defeat these monsters. And now, Rocks' son, Marshall D. Teach, is continuing on his legacy. So let me tell you guys the entire story of this legendary crew. First, let's take a look at why they were even founded, because before becoming captain of the Rocks Pirates, Xebec was already an absolute menace, as his first appearance happens when he attended the Reverie 56 years ago. Basically, an exclusive roundtable of only 50 nations that make up the world government, where they discuss current events and future plans. But Rocks had his own plans of taking 5 of the 50 kings as hostage. With the Reverie being at the Holy Land and Rocks running wild, an admiral was summoned to face him. So what did he do? He killed the Navy admiral like it was nothing. The kidnapping of kings was simply a distraction which Rocks had planned for, because his true goal was to reach the flower room where the biggest secret of the Celestials laid. Imu-sama himself, the king that sits atop the empty throne of the world. In chapter 957, Sengoku stated that Xebec wanted to be the king of the world and he broke way too many taboos. Being a D, it wouldn't be far-fetched to say that Xebec had uncovered a lot about the world, realizing that the Reverie was a sham. Everything was rigged and the devil's corruption was behind it all. Reaching the flower room of Imu was his way of confirming what he knew about the world. Rocks wasn't a dummy. He knew that usurping Imu and the Gorosei wasn't a one-man job. As strong as he is, fighting against 800-year-old devil, the Holy Knights like Garling, who himself likely scaled to Yonko level, was a little too much for even Rocks. So he assembled the best of the best, creating the strongest pirate crew in history. And how did he do this in less than a decade? Well, with the Davy Back fight, which is the biggest hint towards who Rocks actually is, as during his conversation with Imu in chapter 1154, Rocks isn't introduced by name, rather calling himself a fan of Davy Jones, or a Davy Jonesian pirate. According to the legends, Davy Jones was a pirate from long ago who is said to have been cursed by a demon to live on the sea floor, possibly Imu, considering he is the literal devil. This is why the sea floor is called Davy Jones' locker. He has become a worshipped figure within the pirate world, and his namesake is the origin behind the Davy Back fight. Maybe that's another reason Rocks hates Imu. He was the one to seal Davy Jones away. Perhaps he became way too strong and Imu had to personally act. And now Rocks D. Xebec wants to continue Davy Jones' will by killing Imu and taking over the world as a pirate. However, I believe that Davy Jones might have been a Blackbeard-like figure of Joy Boy's time, representing an aspect of freedom achieved through might and living as a true pirate the way we envision them in our world. By traveling, plundering Navy ships, and holding these Davy Back fights, Rocks finally created his crew. So let's go over every single member right now. First, we have the Vice Captain, Edward Newgate, or Whitebeard, the strongest man in the world, but the second strongest in the Rocks crew right after the captain himself. Whitebeard was one of the founding members, as we see him alongside Rocks even 48 years ago when they first visited Elbaf. At this point in life, Whitebeard always longed to find a family, as on his previous ship, he declared such a dream to his comrades, but as we know, he wouldn't find this with the Rocks Pirates. This is showcased by his blatant distaste for the crew, which he used used as an argument to not let Odin join the Whitebeard pirates later in life. He hinted that too many wild and rebellious natures coming together caused the Rocks pirates to be destroyed. Basically a clash of a bunch of conquerors hakis. During the flashbacks, either in God Valley or in Elbaf, Newgate was the voice of reason, the cool-headed first mate that made sure his captain didn't veer off the plan. For example, in God Valley, Whitebeard screams at his captain to not forget what they're there for, the treasure stolen from Hachinose. His role within the Rocks crew leaned towards the peacemaker, and as the big brother dealing with disputes, helping Rocks keep everyone together. So what kept Whitebeard by Rocks' side for over a decade? Well, it comes down to Whitebeard's true goal of joining the Rocks pirates, being his dislike of the world government, which Rocks directly opposed and wanted to dethrone and take over the system himself. Back during these times, there was no revolutionary army of my goat, Monkey Deadbeat Dragon, that helped islands abused by the government. That's why he's coming to Elbaf.
Shut your lame ass up.
Only thing you could do as a small pirate crew was throw hands with the navy a bit or steal some celestial tribute. They would just be a nuisance, but can't really do much damage to Imu's reign. Rocks' ambition to literally topple the seat of power was the only goal worth pursuing for someone like Whitebeard. Maybe this shared goal would give him a family connection with a crew, right? Because Whitebeard's past revealed to us his childhood as an orphan in Sphinx Island. They lost their membership to the world government due to poverty as they couldn't pay their heavenly tribute. With the government's protection gone, pirates roamed free and plundered his home, leading to Whitebeard having to become a pirate himself at an early age to provide for his village with the money that he earned. It would make sense for Whitebeard to blame the government and the current world order for his misfortune. We know Whitebeard has a deep connection to Sphinx, as evident by the sanctuary he created for the people in the future. So if a man who is claiming to become the king of the world comes along with the only one claiming such things in existence currently, it's no wonder a young Whitebeard would follow Rocks, even if he didn't like the rest of the members. After Whitebeard, we have another legendary pirate, the man who wanted to take over the world himself and the first person ever to escape from Impel Down, Shiki the Golden Lion. He even went as far as to ask Roger to join forces with him to achieve the goal that Rocks couldn't fulfill, so it makes sense that Shiki would ally himself with Rocks to pursue the same objective way earlier in life. Now, although the movie Strong World isn't canon, it gives us a hint that Shiki also has a dislike for the world government's control, as shown by him trying to drop an island over Marineford. His armada of ships and his belief in the power of numbers also served as the backbone of the Rocks pirates' strength. Shiki was there with Rocks since the beginning, as we also see him in the flashback at Elbaf 48 years ago, but back then he was simply known as a mobster. Likely bro was terrorizing the Grand Line like a mob boss, asking for protection money against the government or even pirates. Then one day, Rocks won him and his armada in a Davy-back fight. Remember, every single member would later make a move that would be based on their previous experience at Rocks' crew. Shiki is no different, as he would go on to command a large pirate crew of at least 51 divisions, very much like the Whitebeard pirates. His tactical abilities weren't a joke either, since he was crafty enough to escape Impel Down after his rival Roger gave himself up to the Marines, and this dude had to fight Garp and Sengoku at the same time, and somehow bro escaped, okay? And he might still be alive in the canon story right now. That's how busted Shiki the Golden Lion was. Speaking of rivals to Shiki though, 45 years ago, 6 months after the Rocks pirates took over Hachinose, Kyo or Silver Axe would show up to join the strongest crew in the whole world. Because at this point, before the Great Pirate Era, famous crews were known more so as idols. Pirates who wanted to make a name for themselves would seek out Rocks to join his cause, and Kyo was the same. The only difference being that he wasn't a bum, rather strong enough to call Shiki, someone who was at least Yonko tier as his rival, he instantly made a ruckus on the island, being recruited to the crew. But an earlier member who would later be turned into a zombie by Moria is Ganzui. He was an infamous smuggler who lost the Davy back fight and subsequently joined the Rocks Pirates to continue his pursuit. In life, Ganzui was outgoing and often messily feasted alongside his crewmates. This seems to have reflected in combat as well, as during the God Valley incident, Ganzui looked excited at the prospect of a fight with the Roger Pirates. As befitting a smuggler, he had knowledge of the history in the underworld. This dude was likely a menace at his time, as he wasn't just a run-of-the-mill zombie for Moria, but a general zombie. Plus, he kind of looks like a poo. Like, it's just me. Like, he looks like a poo, right? Which makes me wonder if he's related to him, because some of the other characters in Rox's crew, they're all like, they look like they're all related to like supernovas and like new top tier pirates of Luffy's era. Anyway, Don Marlon is another crewmate that has a resemblance to a future supernova, Capone Bedge. He was present at the Elbaf feast, being an early Rocks crewmate 48 years ago. He is a mafia don from the West Blue. He stands out amongst the group as a stoic, similar to Bedge. While the rest top tiers are all laughing and feasting, he remains calm, silent, and has a scowl on his face like a mafia boss. Even before he turned to a life of piracy, Marlon's career as a don had already garnered him a sinister reputation, to the point where Rocks personally sought him out to achieve his goal of conquering Hachinose. Marlon's whole look and even his name are very likely based off the American actor Marlon Brando, who's famous for his role as mafia boss Vito Corleone from The Godfather. But the father of Karibu was likely also part of Rox's crew as Wang Zhi, who later went on to become a top dog in the world of One Piece by taking over Full Elite Island and being involved in the Rocky Port incident. This dude was so strong that he fought against Blackbeard with 2 fruits and was only defeated after Kobe's help and Law's shenanigans. Now, a man who couldn't be stopped by the wielder of the Yami Yami no Mi and the Guraguro no Mi must have been a league on his own in terms of strength. However, by him taking over Full Elite Island after Rox's death, it could give us a hint that he aspired to be like Rox, or still respected him enough to help preserve the former base of his late captain. No other member seems to have any attachment to Rox other than this man stationed at Full Elite. Also, this dude is definitely Karibu's father, okay? I mean, look at the resemblance. They're both skinny, they're both slimy, ugly, and have no business being this prevalent in the plot. Like, look at the tongue. That's Karibu's father, okay? Now, let's move on to someone who actually has relevance to the plot of One Piece, the future Yonko, Kaido. He was born in a poor nation named the Vodka Kingdom. Due to him being from the Oni race, he rose through the ranks, becoming the strongest soldier in the country at only the age of 10. However, by age 13, he started questioning the system and the king because he and the kingdom were invading and looting other towns in order to afford the heavenly tribute to the world government. Due to his defiance and strength, the king decided to sell him off to the Marines so they could be invited to the Reverie, which would transform this poor backwater country, giving Kaido a reason to hate the world government. Luckily, he escaped and evaded capture many times, warranting a bounty of 70 million just by the age of 15, and this is pre-bounty inflation, okay? This is 70 million is like, would be way higher in current era. During this time, he happened to be on Full Elite Island fighting a bunch of notorious pirates in combat. Seeing the potential in the young rookie, Rocks ordered Whitebeard to invite Kaido to join their cause. However, in chapter 1156, we see the differences in how Kaido and Rocks thought. When Kaido proclaims that to achieve his dream of becoming the king of the world, they will need to recruit, herald, and find the Galera giants. Kaido is like, why don't we just use our strength to force the giants to help? To that, Rocks gives the future Yonko a big ass kick, knocking the daylights out of him. This is in line with how Kaido operated his own crew later in life. Strength meant everything to him. He literally sought out strong warriors, crushing their wills to join him any way he saw fit. But Rocks knew the value of friendship. Herald wasn't someone to be pushed around or forced, but someone Rocks respected. And likely in Kaido's mind, later on, he's like, if Rocks had done what Kaido had told him to like force Herald to join them, maybe they would have defeated Imu. Because Kaido only became the strongest in the world, not by merit, but because all the big shots whom he looked up to as a youngster died out one after another. He never got to prove himself as a Yonko. He became an emperor more so through the process of elimination, if we're being real here, with his only rival being Big Mom Mom in the current era, who was like a sister to the young boy in Rox's group. At this point, Big Mom, at the age of 24, already had like 18 children.
What? 21 cars?
Who all have distinct features and characteristics about them. Yes, you heard that right. Big Mom had 18 children when Rock's Pirates were formed 45 years ago, and some of them were likely fathered by the crew member. Big Mom's whole goal in life is to create a safe haven for everyone of any race without discrimination or prejudice. That's essentially how Totoland functions, the only catch being that they all have to pay tribute to her in the form of their life force. She herself was judged and discriminated by society, even her own parents, for being different. She just wanted a place to belong, like Kaido, who was persecuted for his strength as an Oni, or Whitebeard wanting a family. Rox gave her this promise. Her vision of an utopian Totoland could be fulfilled through his fight against the world government. Although this promise never came to fruition, Big Mom did gain a debt of a lifetime from Kaido when she gave him the fish fruit model Azure Dragon after God Valley. This was like a parting gift to her little bro. She would even advise Kaido to like call her up if he ever had any troubles, but sadly for her, after the crew disbanded, he went on his own path. It's highly suggested she wanted to smash Kaido and have some Oni babies. They would later rekindle their relationship and form an alliance due to their shared dream of taking over the world, which they had once pursued as members of the Rock's Pirates. During this alliance, Big Mom mentions that though she was dutiful in serving her previous captain Rox Xebec, her impression of him isn't so great, calling his ass good for nothing, illustrating her disappointment and distrust. This goes back to Rox's promise, which he did not fulfill, which was of destroying the discriminatory system laid out by Emu. But Lin wasn't alone, as she joined the Rock's Pirates with her partner in crime, Streusen. He was born 92 years ago on the Grand Line and was once a chef and a pirate. After his career was ruined, he ate the Kuku no Mi, what is that name? Grant, giving him the power to turn objects into food. His previous experience as a chef made him the perfect user for this food and was probably the cook of the Rock's Pirates. We've seen him turn a log into meat by cutting it, and at 29, he witnessed a 6-year-old Big Mom have a filling meal, which led to the disappearance of Mother Carmel and the children at the sheep's house. And this dude is a complete psycho, okay? He wasn't even scared or horrified. He found it funny that this kid just ate everyone, and so he decided to join up with Lin, manipulating a young child with immense strength so Bro could rise up in the pirate world, eventually joining the Rock's Pirates. 5 years after the Rock's Pirates disbanded, he would go on to form the Big Mom Pirates with Lin, serving as the first and founding member of the soon-to-be Yonko crew. However, not all members of the Rock's Pirates were united by this notion of toppling the world government, as next we have Captain John, and all this dude cared about was money. This dude was so in love with money that after Rox's crew disbanded, Bro managed to build a ridiculously large treasure trove, but because he didn't want to share any of it with his crew, they game-ended him. But the crew sadly could not find where he hid the treasure, which was only found later on by Buggy the Clown. Captain John represents that Rox had his goal of destroying Marie Schwa. While some of his crewmates shared that goal, most of them joined him for the riches and notoriety such a dream would bring. It wasn't like Luffy's crew, where members are willing to sacrifice their own dreams so Luffy can still try and achieve his, like Zoro tanking Luffy's pain in Thriller Bark at the risk of his life ending. The loyalty between these monsters was very thin. Their own life came before their captain and the crew's goal. That's why literally when the crew is founded, they almost fell apart in chapter 1156, with Shiki trying to explain how this isn't the time for fighting and making the crew collapse. Next, we have Gill Buster, the main character of the One Piece one-shot Most Wanted. His criminal career started after he was forced to kill someone in self-defense, which led to him gaining a bounty and gaining the attention of several bounty hunters. This made him go from a random dude to a notorious criminal with the insane bounty of 970 million berries. What makes this guy scary is his marksmanship. After joining the Rock's Pirates, he used his revolver pistol to kill many of his captain's enemies. By the time Rox had made his way to God Valley, Gill had gained an extra pair of arms and used 4 pistols. We also know that he was capable of sensing spiritual things, as he could see wild while Joe as a ghost. Unfortunately, this dude's shit luck just keeps getting worse, as after his death, he was revived as one of Gecko Moria's zombie generals. It wasn't just humans who joined Rox's crew though, as we have Barbell the Fishman, who joined Rox 44 years ago, right around the time they took over Pirate Island, becoming one of the top members. Bro just seemed like a strong fishman, like there isn't much to say about this guy.
We got nothing on him.
38 years ago, Barbell was present in the Rox Pirates invasion of God Valley, an event which would go down in history as the God Valley incident. Whether or not he survived, we don't know. But one of the members who is still living of Rox's crew is Gloriossa, who was the Empress of Amazon Lily over 45 years ago, now being known as Elder Neon, relegated to the role of helping Boa Hancock navigate the world and protect the island of women. Before joining the Rox Pirates, she was an idol of the world. Men would goon over her wanted posters. She was an S-tier baddie, only outshined by her successor, Shiki. However, Gloriossa was very ill, as she was lovesick over Goldie Roger, who didn't reciprocate that love. Roger was way too busy gooning over Shiki. We don't actually see Gloriossa joining Rox's crew even after they take over Full Elite Island and officially establish themselves as a pirate crew. She was won over by Rox during a Davy back fight against the Kuja Pirates between 45 years ago to 38 years ago, as at God Valley she's present fighting against her Pookie Roger. Gloriossa isn't the only baddie in Rox's crew though, as we also have Miss Buckingham Stussy. Not the same Stussy who is part of CP0 right now though, as that one is a clone based on the DNA of the original Miss Bakin. Bakin had claimed she and Whitebeard had a fling, which resulted in this monstrosity in Edward Weevil being born. Stussy seems to have been one of the founding members of the Rox Pirates, as she's seen at Elbaf over 48 years ago. Here, Bakin replied that although she did not hold strong loyalty for Rox, his plans were interesting to her and was hopeful that there would be profit as a result. After leaving Rox's crew, she would become a self-styled scientist and join the illegal science institute MADS, but freeloaded off their research. However, what if I were to tell you that Weevil isn't just a result of Whitebeard getting it down? Rather, he's a test tube baby mixed with Whitebeard's DNA along with Stussy. Rox's crew disbanded after God Valley, which happened 38 years ago, but Weevil is only 35 years old, meaning he was conceived 2 to 3 years after Whitebeard and Stussy separated. What's more likely is that this psycho purposely joined Rox's crew to gather Whitebeard's DNA. So what if after recreating herself with the help of Mads, she decided to make her own child using Whitebeard's goon juice?
Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Her joining Rox also fits, as being someone who enjoys science and experimentation, Bakin would love the funding similar to Vegapunk, and what better way to get funding than through the strongest pirate of this era, Roxy Xebec, where her role was likely that of a doctor. After looking at all the different members of Rox's crew, it's pretty clear to me he was an all-inclusive guy. I mean, we have giants, Oni, and fishmen like Barbell. Every type of race is welcome aboard Rox's ship. Kinda reminds me of how accepting Luffy or Joy Boy are of the different races of the world. But what's very apparent is that Rox didn't just choose any random NPC to come onto his ship. Every member had a deliberate purpose. I think the best instance we see of this is when Rox took interest and befriended King Harold of Elbaf. Through his relationship, not only did Harold's knowledge on the world government increase, but Rox also learned about the knowledge of Elbaf, especially the mural and more info about the Galera giants. For Rox to achieve his goals of becoming king of the world, he needed power and strength beyond anything seen before. Hence, his interest also went on the ancient weapons, with Galera needed as, you know, they were the ancient shipbuilders who likely built Pluton itself. Alongside the might of Elbaf and Harold's wish to live in the real world with the world government as equals, it made him the perfect person to recruit. Rox even talks about how someone has to conquer the world and that Harold should join him because the world government will never listen to him anyway. As we know, things didn't go Rox's way here, but it sets a good precedent for how smart and calculating he really is. He's not like Luffy, who sees a talking tree and asks them to join join his crew. Rocks wanted to become king, and so he assembled a group that would pave the way for his ascension. Getting all these big shots together reminds me of what Mihawk said about Luffy in Marineford, that his strongest power is how he can get people to follow him, and Rocks was able to bring everyone from Whitebeard to Stussy together. However, the Rocks pirate's loyalty didn't lie with Rocks himself, but his promise of taking over the world, or his strength to make everyone's dreams a reality. This was made clear to them from the inception of the crew, unlike Luffy's, whose dream wasn't revealed to the Straw Hats until end of Wano. So after his defeat, it's natural for them all to disband and go their separate ways. This is the biggest difference between someone like Xebec and Luffy. Although the Straw Hats follow Luffy to realize their own dreams, they don't waver even when Luffy is defeated. Even when his heart stopped in Onigashima, Nami and rest of the crew wouldn't acknowledge their captain's defeat. However, Rox's crew might have been the reason for his loss in God Valley 38 years ago. Due to them believing in the greed of having their dreams become reality through Rox's power, they started to distrust him as soon as he seemed weak against Roger and Garp. That's why Big Mom tells a young Kaido to not trust Rox, as they meant nothing to him, just like he meant nothing to his crew without his strength. This is bolstered further by how Kaido chose to structure his own crew and what someone who was above him meant to him. They needed to be more powerful than Kaido. That's who Joy Boy was to him. Someone who is the strongest, like Rox. But it's possible that even his defeat at God Valley was all part of Rox's plan, as he himself never planned on being the one to topple the world government, but rather have it be his son, Marshal D. Teach. Remember, before Mads successfully created new life, they must have experimented with living beings. This is where Blackbeard comes in, a 1-year-old child purposely given to them to create the most powerful pirate to ever exist. Rox understood the enemies he was facing were immortal. Learning of Imu's secret, he realized that to fight such a demon, he had to become a demon himself. His goal was always to topple the Celestial Dragons, the God's Knights, and Imu, but it's been well established at this point that Rox wasn't stupid, and so as a contingency, Rox created a means to wield multiple devil fruits at once. Mads, under Rox's request, modified Blackbeard's body, making it unique. You see, the reason why a person can't wield more than one devil fruit is because the two wills of the fruits clash inside your body like a conqueror's hockey clash between two warriors in reality, repelling each other and imploding you from the inside. Watch the hockey video from last week if you want to learn more. I believe that Blackbeard's modification made him half human and with multiple inorganic parts. That inorganic part is able to host devil fruits. Vegapunk would later implement this method with other or inorganic items like Funkfried and Shamrock's sword Cerberus. So what I'm saying is Rox's own demon god fruit, which had possession power similar to Imu, was able to pass its will, power, and personality to part of Blackbeard's inorganic body. We know that all zone devil fruits carry a will. Luffy's fruit has the will of Nika, Imu's devil fruit has the will of the devil, but Xebec's managed to mold his own will with his fruit and transfer it to his son. The revelations don't stop there, as Blackbeard, Buggy, and Shanks might all be brothers. So watch the video about that on screen right now, where Yusuf expands even more on this Roxy, Xebec, and Blackbeard link.